Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. This is the City of Gig Harbor's Design Review Board meeting for February 24th, 2022. And we'll start with a roll call. Usually just say your name and raise your hand or sign in. So Larry Bradbury.
Here.
And Marlene Drupper.
Here.
Here, and Darren Filan, and then staff.
Michelle Thomas.
Jeremy Hammer.
Perfect. Okay. Okay. We'll go ahead and I think we had one meeting minutes to approve. I think since there's three of us here, double check that. That was from December 9th, 2021.
That's correct.
And, yeah, and in attendance was Marlene and Larry and myself. So I guess, let's see, we still had just John. So I ask if we have a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
And second, any further discussion? Okay, we'll call for the question. All in favor? Approve the minutes? Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, and minutes are approved. Okay, we'll move on with the agenda. Okay, so we'll start. I don't know, do we have any members of the public listening in, Michelle? Just to make sure we're acknowledging them.
We do not have anybody listening in.
Okay, I'll speak to the group at hand here. I'll ask the DRB members, Larry and Marlene, if you had any ex parte communication regarding this pre-application. So I see Marlene just jumped back in. So I'm asking if you or Larry have had any ex parte communication regarding this pre-application.
No, thank you.
I have not.
Okay. And ask if there are any reason for any of the applicants to recuse or ask any of the DRB members, have an issue with any DRB members discussing and voting on this matter. We won't be voting tonight, but if you have any issues, speak up now. Okay, being none, we'll carry on. This is an open public meeting, and typically in these virtual meetings, we will allow for public comment. And Michelle will let us know if anybody signs in and would like to say something. We'll give an opportunity for them to speak later on in the meeting. So then kind of moving on, we have one agenda for the evening. This is pre-application. This is a public meeting for pre-app for City of Harbor's Design Review Board. The applicant is requesting review of a proposal to construct a car wash facility and drive-through coffee shop on the site presently developed as a gas station convenience store. This is at 5115 Olympic Drive. I'm fairly familiar with this property in town. So I think we would start with the staff report. We'll turn over to the applicant. So that would be, I think, Jeremy, are you gonna give us a staff report?
I'll just give a little overview.
Okay.
Since there was, I think the main thing we'll do here is just kind of discuss how the project relates to the design manual. In the staff report I provided, I kept the answers relatively vague due to kind of the limited amount of materials that were included with the application. So I guess I'll just kind of start it off. This project coming before you is a pre-application. Code allows an applicant to come before DRB prior to finalizing or formalizing a design to get a sense of what the DRB is interested in relative to the project, or to provide feedback that they'll later take into consideration for a more formal submittal. No decision or recommendation will come from this meeting, and it's basically just an opportunity for the applicant to receive feedback, as I stated before. So the project, as was noted, is for a drive-through coffee stand and a car wash. The coffee stand is a 10 by 28 structure with drive-through lanes on either side, service windows. This site, as it stands now, has a convenience store and gas station pumps. So this would be on the south portion of the lot. The second portion of the project would be a car wash, a 90-foot tunnel design. The narrative notes some of the different materials there would be proposing, along with the colors, grays, earth tones, similar. It's just going through there were comments provided by engineering and building. Building's comments were related to the primary walkways. Those would need to be accessible walkways as they're required in the design manual. And engineering had some comments that were more related to utilities and infrastructure on the site. So it's doesn't necessarily relate to the design review at this point, I would say. So the proposal would also be subject to site plan review and approval of the uses as part of the entire package. So and I'm here just to answer any questions regarding the design manual or the code. So I guess with that, DRB or the applicant can give their brief overview of the project.
Larry, Marlene, you got any questions of Jeremy before we start?
I do not.
Okay, all right. So we'd ask the applicant and your team maybe to introduce yourselves and relationship to the project, and then the floor is yours.
David, do you want to start?
Sure. My name is David Benani. I am the tenant for the car wash.
My name is Rachel Husting. Greta Antoness and I are with Argo Murray Construction, and we are the design build general contractor working on the car wash. The representative for the coffee shop, who is also the owner of the property, is not on this call.
And then my name is Scott Martin. I'm with Kimley Horn, civil engineer.
So for a little bit of background, we did meet with staff for an initial overall pre-application meeting with all departments represented back in September. And it was at that meeting that we reviewed our initial building elevations that were proposed at the time, which were significantly different than what we're bringing forward today. They had a lot more red. We got a lot of feedback regarding kind of having some things that don't agree with the design manual for the town. So we have kind of gone back, we've coordinated with the developer for the coffee shop and tried to put together plans that agree more with each other and with the surrounding designs of the nearby commercial properties. So that is what we come forth with today, mostly to get any feedback on really what we have here today, so that we can proceed with producing more developed designs to make our full applications to start the full process with the city. So that's really why we're here today.
Okay. And I'd ask maybe of Larry and Marlene, do you have the full submittal documents? In essence, their narrative, their site plans, and their elevations.
I do. I have reviewed those.
Okay.
I did have them.
Okay. Well, maybe maybe Larry, if you had a chance to review those, you want to start with just some opening comments on the package.
I really don't have anything specific. I've related the designs I was able to review back to the staff report and indications that the current design proposal does not meet the planning guidance. I'm not entirely clear where that's deficient. My overall perspective would be that the proposed use and proposed design would not be something that would not fit with current use of that specific parcel and the surrounding business activity.
Okay. Marlene, you want to chime in?
Sure. I guess since we don't have the representative of the coffee shop, maybe we should focus on just the car wash. Is that, I do have some notes. One of our our magic numbers is 80 feet, and that's, you know, the intent of the design review. The intent of the manual is to avoid big boxes that are just boxes. We're kind of always looking for some decorations on our boxes if they're going to be a big box. And there's a lot of, if you've gone through the design manual, there's a lot of things about what sorts of, you know, roof projections and breaking up that box in different ways. Your plans show 90 feet as your magic number, but I think 90 feet is your wash tunnel. And you do have, you have a lot of decoration on that box on kind of the front and back. Not that much on the sides. So I don't know kind of what the spacing is between those, you know, those front and back sides. I guess the other part is that if you look at our design manual, there's a lot of, you know, I always laugh because the picture that we call out as unacceptable, I think actually it's not, it's not that bad a building, but the reason it's called out as unacceptable is because it is kind of box-like. But what the design review board is always looking for is the equal or equivalent to intent. So if you don't make if administration looks at your does a design, if sorry, city staff goes through your design and says, well, it doesn't seem to conform with what's in the manual, then you have an opportunity to make your case that what you're doing is equivalent or better than if you just followed the letter of the manual. So that's kind of what we're looking for. And I guess maybe I would ask, and I can't do it, I'm not going to share my screen and I don't have it pulled up, but maybe we want to talk a little bit about the elevations, and if someone wants to, if someone's able to share the screen and just look at those elevations, I guess that's would be what we want to give you some guidance on.
Right.
So Michelle, is that, yeah, maybe we could have, if Michelle would allow that for the applicant, maybe they could pull those up.
Everybody has screen sharing ability.
I can do mine.
Okay.
I actually can go ahead and share mine. We do have an updated version of our elevations than what we originally submitted, if that's okay. The only difference is that the building materials are shown more clearly, rather than kind of just being sort of blank gray. So if it's all right, I'll share those. Okay, so hopefully you're seeing this. Are you all able to see my screen?
Yes. So are most of the material metal in essence?
So this Nichiha material is really, it's a synthetic product that can look like masonry, it can look like wood. What we're really proposing here, you can see these panels more clearly in this actual image. So it's a bit more of like a siding, cementitious looking product. And then this is more of like a wood looking product.
One of the, the comments I would have initially is kind of twofold. First, the form of the building is very specific, and maybe I don't know if it's somewhat branded. It's asymmetrical. It's got some unique sort of characteristics to it that are a little more untraditional. And not to say that it doesn't fit into itself and is a good composition. I think looking at the overall site and considering what's there, we would be talking about covering for an existing fuel station and a convenience store. That'll probably have some modifications to it because you're tearing down a significant chunk that's already there, adding this building, and then obviously adding a coffee shop. So my initial comment is, how do all of these things sort of work together? I don't know if the design manual outright sort of suggests that we should have an incredible eclectic mix of architectural styles on one particular site, even though sometimes it sort of over many years kind of happens that way. But I would think that it would help complement the site if the buildings, all four of those structures talk to each other. It became almost like a mini campus, even though they may be different brands. Maybe the architecture is less brand specific and a little more compatible with the development as a whole.
Mhm.
Yeah, so the intent of what we're bringing to you today is we really focused on the car wash and the coffee shop specifically, to kind of have similar color schemes. So you can see there's sort of like a dark red tone that's complementing some of the car wash here. And then I know that the elevations for the coffee shop are not colored, but you can see they've got a little bit of red complementing in their design as well. So we're sort of trying to stay consistent while definitely not completely the exact same design. There will be a little bit of variation, but the idea is that they complement each other.
Yeah, this is David Bonani, and talking to the landlord, and it's unfortunate that his representative is not here, because my discussion with him is that he will even do this, whatever design element, paint or siding or whatever, to the existing convenience store, which is rather old. He will re-side that to match the overall theme, so they are more cohesive. The goal we were looking at is more like Ocean 5, that in that center, that kind of elements. So, and that's the beauty of our building, is that it can actually substitute some of the light grays for the wood tones and whatever we need to do.
Well, I think for a car wash, obviously the use of these, I would say, more sophisticated palette of materials, I think will make the building seem less, I don't know, we have other examples where the buildings seem a little more, I don't know how to say it, bright and neon-like, and this seems a little more subdued, which is appreciative. But at the same time, I think we have a lot of angles and other things with roof lines that are going on that seem a little bit brand specific. And the coffee shop's geometry also looks somewhat brand specific. I don't know if they have like a standard, but I feel pretty strongly that I think that if you were to propose the different architectural styles, that we would really need to see them in context, meaning when we have some kind of visual that shows all of them together, so we can see how they complement one another. Because I'm kind of right now simultaneously looking at Google Street Views and looking up at that site, the coffee shop and and then the gas pumps, and then the convenience store behind, and the car wash. You're going to sort of take in all these buildings in the same perspective in various viewpoints. And they're different scales, and they're basically 4 different types, buildings. And I think it would really help the site to, bring them closer together a little bit, because again, you're fighting physical scale. They're different, by nature of their programs, what they're trying to accomplish. So you have to, sort of calm down, maybe I think the architecture a little bit, or simplify, like the coffee shed. It looks like, in essence, a small little, shed type building. It's of that scale, and the roof line is very asymmetrical. So that would be my thought, is I think that maybe you have to look at those again. And the materials to me are, they're not bad. I think so, induction of maybe some masonry or other elements that are warmer would help the project out a little bit. But I think it's a sophisticated palette of materials. It's just used in a way that's very contemporary, very modern. And I would just caution that unless you're going to remake the rest of the buildings on the site this way, it would be 4 different sort of buildings we'd be looking at. Marlene, you got thoughts on sort of the idea of complementary architecture within the overall project?
Yeah, I did have thoughts about it. I went back and forth about how important that would be, but I actually think that the design of, I actually like the material palette, and I know you're saying, colors and whatever, but I actually think this material palette is better than what you're showing at the coffee stand. So I would, if something were to change, I would say I would rather see more of this and less of that. I wanted to put some trace paper over that one, and
yeah, well, hopefully we can refrain from that. And,
but yeah, you could put some trace paper over it, and I think for a small building like that, a standing metal roof. I was wondering about your if grindstone. I don't know if they're a chain. I don't know if the circular window was supposed to refer to a literal grindstone. But I was trying to sort of understand why it was sort of an off-centered. I would almost want to see, what I would want to see is the roof line kind of incorporating that round shape, if that round shape was important. And then, I don't, the light gray brick wainscot, we see a lot of that. And yeah, I don't really need to see more of it. Anyway, but in any case, I think I don't think that that's actually going to come to us if we say what doesn't meet what's in the code. I think that that's a small enough building that it didn't trigger anything. So I guess we'll leave it to you to, there is something in here about uniforming, making your things more uniform across the site, but could be interpreted in a lot of different ways, I guess. I guess the other, if we go back, could you go back to the car wash? Let's see. So there's a lot of stuff happening on front and back. I actually think I'm okay with it. Again, with how it's broken up, I don't really think that middle part needs to be. When I look at the way the ends are put together, I don't really think I want to see that middle part be sort of more. I think that what you have there is okay, just in the massing and formal, just the way you've decorated that box. That's I'm okay with that. If you look at the site, and maybe that's something we want to talk about, is the site plan as well. Thank you for scrolling through. There are a lot of, I guess, I looked at it on Google Maps too. And where your parking, where your where that building is actually covered by a lot of trees, which I'm hoping that you're going to be keeping. And then I wouldn't mind if you went through this, just tell us what's existing on this and what's being removed, just so we can have some clarity about that.
As far as the trees go?
No, as far as the buildings.
Oh,
And
the only
trees
thing
as
that,
well.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I've been up at that site several times. I'm up in Gig Harbor a lot because my daughter and son-in-law and granddaughters live there. So what's being removed, the only part of the existing building that's going to be removed is the unused work shed. The old repair shop area is going to be torn down. It's actually a separate wall.
Can you point, can you put the little hand on that on the map? What's,
Yeah.
what's,
David, can you direct me?
That's the convenience store. Go right, go to our site where the existing building is. No, go down. There you go, right there. That's an
okay.
existing old repair shed that we're just going to tear down.
Okay, I've never even noticed that. And the building on the other side of that is the convenience store.
That is the convenience store. That stays intact as is. It's actually a separate wall. It's just right up against each other. So that'll go away.
Is the convenience store getting a facelift too, or is that something?
He has told me he will facelift to match the overall design and colors.
Well, that was one question I had.
Yeah, it's
Where we have at least 3 major architectural styles on the property.
Mm-hmm. Now he's aware of that, and he's told me he's committed to matching it all up as best they could with that building without modifying the building, obviously.
Then the question would be, match it to what?
Well,
Since the coffee shop and the car wash are 2 unique architectural styles independent of one another.
correct, but matching, I think his intent was to match colors, and if we're putting like a wood element on, or a panel element like our existing stuff, whatever it is, to match it up as best we can to make it cohesive. But I don't think he has any intent to modify the building at all at this point. So I guess it'd be more like colors and siding.
And my point, again, when you look at the site plan here, is the coffee shop now becomes in essence sort of the prominent, even though it's a small little building, it's kind of the first that you see from Olympic Drive.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So that architecture, I think, wants to be, modest, but a gem.
Mhm.
And, it probably needs to, as it sits in the foreground of the fueling station canopy, they need to sort of complement or work together or look like they're not fighting one another.
Mhm.
I think our goal would be that when you place it there, that it looks like it's been there forever. It wasn't some infill. And again, I think the use of the materials, I do agree with Marlene. I think the materials you've selected so far on the car wash building are sophisticated. They're very clean, kind of contemporary look, rich palette, if you will, if those were brought over. I think a fueling station and a convenience store tend to be a little more, I don't know, seems like they'd be more contemporary. Obviously, you got to have non-combustible type metal materials around a fueling station anyways. And, maybe it seems like that coffee shop might borrow some of the language from the car wash. And it seems more compatible across the campus.
Mhm.
Again, this brand, the idea of branding, this goes back a long ways in the city of Harbor, that, the idea of, a very traditional brand. I mean, there has been, prior to the design review manual, some of the typical sort of, fast food tenant boxes that get dropped in, but the idea is to think about that a little bit differently, specifically Olympic Drive. You think about Point Fosdick. This particular site, this fueling station, is probably in its history, one of the most attractive that you've ever seen. You know, it sits back, has a, you know, sort of a beautiful landscape entrance with mature fir trees, and that sort of language, when it was originally conceived, I think back in the 70s, was a language that was utilized up and down Olympic as well as Point Fosdick. So this is definitely, you know, an important part of the character in that area that we've tried to enhance over time, even with the new Safeway development over there. Those fir trees that the design review board, you know, asked for, you know, during that development are starting to grow up, and you're seeing a complement to that design on that side of the street is, you know, it's on the opposite side of Point Fosdick. So
Sure.
again, I think this coffee shop, you know, kind of sitting up in there, I would, it can be better. I think the landscaping and some of the improvements on the front, you know, that drive coming off of Olympic could use a little refresh. But,
Yeah, that's true.
you know, it's got some, I don't know if it still has sort of the wood, you know, retaining wall, the little, you know, pilings or whatever they're out there, sort of landscape timbers, but it definitely could use a little refresh, you know, with this coffee shop and these drive-throughs through there.
Yeah, it is the intent to redo the whole signage areas to address that, plus add the other tenants, of course, the coffee shop and us. So that would absolutely get taken care of in the deal.
Okay.
And from our site, you know, the plan is to leave the perimeter big trees, obviously.
Yeah.
You know, they're nice and beautiful. We're just gonna take down what we need to actually work the site.
Can you maybe run through how it seems like it's pretty self-explanatory how the front portion of the site actually works, you know, with the fueling station and coming in, it looks like you can access the coffee shop on both sides. You've got kind of some ins and outs. How does the car wash and then the subsequent either parking, or I don't know if there's those station areas for doing vacuum and clean out, you know, how does that work?
Yes, of course. The access, of course, will come off of either Olympic through the gas station area around the coffee shop, or through 32nd Avenue on the other shared drive. You enter that one pinch point there. There's three lanes. The one against the building is a pay lane for those who just want to pay either cash or just a credit card. The other two are membership or app-based. So they just literally drive up and it recognizes the license plate and the gate opens and they go through. The whole experience is about a minute 40 to 2 minutes. And then there is no parking except for employees in the vacuum area. The triangles are the vacuums. So those who want to vacuum go in, they can vacuum and then leave. It's a self-serve vacuum system. So, and then we have the employee parking. There's no lobbies, there's no staying. It's very fluid in the traffic.
Okay.
What about traffic congestion around the coffee shop and the pump island?
Well, I mean, again, that's not our project, but that's the landlord's, but I agree with you. It is a tight little space. I mean, I've actually been on that site and it has the potential, I'm sure, because of the double drive-through, to get a little congestion around the pumps. Backing up into the street. Depends on if how they do with the coffee.
No, I see a potential hazard there where you have not just cars going in to refuel, but as indicated in the plans, up to 6 cars around the coffee shop at any given time, plus people coming in off the street on Olympic that are going to cut through all that and go back to the car wash. And I think if that gets congested and starts pushing traffic back onto Olympic Drive, that's a problem. Also potentially a safety hazard when you're having all that activity around these fuel pumps.
Yeah, so most of our customers should, and we can encourage them to actually exit onto 32nd and out, not directly back onto Olympic. That's a pretty heavy street. When I've been up there, that's a hard one to cross.
Yeah, you really wouldn't want to cross it, even trying to leave that driveway and take a right turn. Usually the pace of people coming from Point Fosdick is pretty aggressive by that point. So
Mhm.
you have to pull out pretty quick. So I would favor going out on 32nd and hit the light. So,
Correct.
but Larry brings up a good point. Again, that might be a little bit out of our purview, but it's still a point taken, that Public Works and engineering will certainly want to take a look at. And even with the car wash, as you queue out of the car wash, I don't know, but obviously it'd be based on volumes. If there was any sort of potential, lineup or activity at 32nd driveway, would that, prohibit people from, exiting the car wash properly or at a prompt moment? So.
Well, for operationally, we'll have an employee standing at that entrance at all times to make sure they do get off, or if there is an issue, they can stop the belt or slow it down to
Okay.
alleviate that so they don't get another car hitting another one.
Okay. Okay.
We do monitor that to make sure it's fluid.
Well, the 32nd Avenue, that driveway, it's a little quieter on that backside there.
Correct.
Not so many people cut through there, but Olympic is a different story.
Yes.
All right, so any other comments, Larry or Marlene?
I would just piggyback off of a comment I believe Marlene made earlier. The roof line on the coffee shop is somewhat odd to me. I am not a big fan of clear story anyway, and that's just a personal thing. But in this case, it's a very small building, and the design calls for a downward sloping but very small front, and then a clear story in roughly the middle of the building. And given how small it is, that winds up looking kind of odd to me.
Can you flip back to that elevation? Thank you, Rachel. Yeah, I would concur, Larry, that I think there's sometimes, the design manual in its sort of intention is to take big boxes and try to get them to modulate a little bit. But I think we've often found that even that we can maybe get buildings that are too overly modulated. And I would say, again, a little building like this, it might have some more elegance and beauty if it's actually more simply done, as opposed to, having so many ups and downs, right? It's very modest. It could be a beautiful, simple building and be more complementary, I think, to the what else you're doing on the site.
Sure. We'd be happy to relay that to them. I think he
Okay.
was trying, he built one at his other gas station up in Bremerton, I believe. The similar design. So I think he's just trying to lather, rinse, repeat, pardon the pun, but
Well, on a building that small, a simple gable roof design would fit pretty well, in my opinion, and probably make it a little bit easier to integrate that design with whatever improvements might be made to the existing convenience store.
Mhm. Makes sense. We can pass that on for sure.
Okay. Marlene, any last thoughts?
Oh, I am unmuted. Yeah, I'd say that was, again, this is not a design review, that's not our department, but drive-through coffee, I've noticed, is extremely popular here in Gig Harbor. So you might want to consider your 3 in each direction. Both the Starbucks and the one that's downtown do tend to back up, backing up onto, and we have a couple of drive-through applications in Gig Harbor that do back up onto streets, including one car wash. And it seems like, again, you're going to go all through all this, not with us, but it seems like your car wash has a lot of lanes and a lot of room for stacking and waiting. So it's not going to spill into the street. The coffee, though, might be something you want to think about, whether you've left enough space for the demand of cars of people that need coffee. So.
Yes, he owns the Shell station across the street as well, and I've been through that one. And and I've also been through William Patrick, so I understand what you're saying. Do stack up.
Yeah, we do have some instances in town, the Starbucks that's immediately west of this property at the Key Bank. There's often a lot of sort of congestion on how to actually navigate an adjacent parking field for a bank and how to get into the queuing line. And then they do have a Starbucks that was recently completed a few years back that is adjacent Kimball Drive. And that actually can back up onto Kimball. And people don't, again, when we get to a certain point, what ends up happening is people don't know what to do when a car is blocking, and then people are starting to make maneuvers that are, at the very least illegal. And it just, it puts everybody in a little bit of a, quandrum. So anyway, I think this one has that potential too. So I think Larry brings up a good point here. So again, that'll be maybe something a little bit outside our purview, but I think we'd be amiss to not bring it up.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll have to address that as we go through the site planning process. Yeah, I think our big goal here today was to get preliminary feedback on the architectural form, the colors, the materials, and if it's possible to weigh in on the type of DRB application we have to make, because I understand there are a couple of versions. Do you think it's possible, or I don't know if you're able to give us that feedback here, that we can go through the administrative route?
Well, the city staff will be able to determine whether or not you could go administratively.
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. So with your design review application, we have a design review checklist, which would go through all of the design review criteria that are listed in the manual. For ones that you meet outright, you would select administrative review. Those would be the ones where city staff would review those for compliance, just make sure they are consistent with the design manual. And for items that don't comply, those would be the ones you would request a design review board review of. So yeah, ones that you're not necessarily able to meet prescriptively, those will be the ones that you take to design review board. So it is possible to do it entirely administratively, but that's kind of based off of the design. One more thing that Michelle actually reminded me of when the topic of landscaping came up. There was some tree removal done at the front of the site where the coffee shop is being proposed now. That was done without a permit. So those trees they weren't part of a formal landscaping plan, but they were associated with a variance that was granted to the site when the site was under jurisdiction of the county. So that's something that'll need to be worked through also. I think, I believe the owners are currently working with code enforcement. Is that correct, Michelle?
That is correct. They're going to get a notice of violation here soon. They've been warned.
That's my landlord.
All right, to echo and maybe add on another comment to what Jeremy mentioned there relative to design review. I would encourage applicant that the DRB process coming in front of the DRB is, I think, a better option sometimes when you find yourself wanting to deviate from the prescriptive approach. I always think the prescriptive approach leads to maybe something that's a little more cut and paste and maybe not a more cohesive design. So we always are very open to concepts, maybe using alternative materials and such in a sort of a greater understanding of the entire project. But with that said, we do like to see the whole project. It's much easier for us to review the project if we can see it in its totality, even if we are only officially only reviewing a few key components and the rest is administratively approved. It's hard sometimes to approve pieces a la carte, because ultimately it is one complete project. And so we encourage just to bring the whole thing. If there's a way you could show us, whether it's some sort of a digital model or some other way to help us visualize the whole project, completed. I think the DRB appreciates that, and it gives us all the ability to see something as a completed project. And you're more apt to have some opportunities to explore different materials or things that are outside the norm that would otherwise be limited by the prescriptive approach. So.
Okay, yes, we'll plan on producing a rendering of the full site for our formal submittal.
Okay. All right. Anything else you'd like to get input from the DRBs that give you a little bit of direction?
I think this was extremely helpful. We'll go back as a full team and look at things, and we have some direction to kind of move towards making our full submittal.
Okay. Okay. Jeremy, Michelle, anything else we need to cover?
Nothing else on my end of it. Thank you.
Okay.
The next meeting's been canceled, just so you guys know.
Okay.
We certainly
So-
appreciate all your time.
Well, thank you. It looks like it has the potential to be a really good project. Still have some issues it looks like to get to work through, but there's always a solution somewhere.
We're excited about it. Like I said, I really like Gig Harbor. I'm up there every month visiting. So, this was my first site in Washington when we brought the concept up. So I'm hoping we can get that done. I think it'd be a great addition.
Okay. Thank you.
My daughter would be thrilled. Yeah.
Okay, with that
Thank you.
said, yeah, we can excuse the applicants. I don't think we have anything other. You guys hang around as we wrap up the meeting, but we'll hopefully look to see this project at some point in the near future.
Great,
Well, good.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Everybody
Thanks.
have a good evening.
Okay, Larry, Marlene, I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Oh, yeah. A second.
Marlene seconds. Okay, if there isn't any further business, we'll call for the question. All in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Aye. And Marlene. Okay, thanks you guys. Thanks Michelle. Thanks Jeremy.
Thank you.
And get home
Thank
and
you.
get some dinner. All right, we'll see you guys next time.